Hi everyone, we're back in the saddle for the next installment of my top 50 games of all time series. Today we're going to be talking about games 40 through 31, and we're going to be talking about a few other things. What other things, you might ask? Well, if you watched my last video, you'll know I hinted at a little bit of a giveaway at the end of that one. Well, now that I've ironed out some of the details, it's time to make this giveaway official. So if you want some more suggestions for some of my favorite games, and you want to know the juicy details about my giveaway,
I gotta know.
then might I suggest? Hi, I'm Alex from Might I Suggest a Game, a channel devoted to helping you find your perfect board game. Today, like I mentioned before, we're talking about games 40 through 31 on my top 50 games of all time list, but I know why you're all here. You want free games, and I don't blame you. Those games that I talked about in my last video, and the games I'm talking about today, are certified bangers. And you're gonna want to get your hands on them. So I figured I'd give away one free game from my list for every episode that I do. But because I didn't mention one last time, I'm gonna have to be a little retroactive on it. So the game that I'll be giving away for last episode is Phantom Inc. from the Resonym. It was my number 42 game of all time, and let me tell you, it's a blast. If you want to know more about that game, check out my last video. And if you want to enter the giveaway, here's what you're gonna have to do. First things first, you gotta go down there and hit subscribe, and that little bell button so you can get notified when I post new content. Subscribing helps get the word about this channel out there, and it also helps me keep track of who enters. And if you already subscribed, then no worries. Thanks for supporting the channel already. Okay, now once you subscribe, there's only one other thing that you gotta do. You gotta go to my last video where I talked about Phantom Inc., and you gotta leave a little wine glass emoji in the comment section. Now, if you want a bonus entry, I'd love it if you commented one of your favorite games or suggested a game that you think I would like based on my favorite list. And that's it. You just gotta do two things, and a fresh copy of Phantom Inc. could be yours. Now, this giveaway is only gonna be open until I post my next video, so make sure to get on it. Anyways, now that I'm getting the giveaways rolling, I'll be doing another one for this set of 10 games, so make sure you stick around to the end to figure out how to win. Alright, I hope that's enough information. Best of luck to everyone who enters. Alright, now that that's over, let's get into it. Will one of my top 50 games of all time be the perfect game for you? Let's find out, shall we? Alright, let's get this thing started. Number 40 on my top 50 games of all time list is actually a newer adaptation of an older game. It's Sobek 2 Players from Pandasaurus Games. Now, since this game came out, I've been playing it pretty much non-stop on BGA. It's such a simple concept, yet every time that I play it, I feel like I'm uncovering new strategies that make this spatial puzzle exciting to play every time. In this game, there's a grid of tiles with different types of goods represented on them, and you'll be moving this pawn around the board to collect those tiles and create sets in your supply. Now, the tricky part is, each of these goods tiles has some directional arrows on it. That means if you collect that good, you'll have to angle the pawn in that specific direction. This means you really gotta be thinking ahead when you're moving around so that you can get the tiles that you want and keep your opponent from getting the ones they want. Playing offense and playing defense in this one are equally important, but the game itself doesn't end up feeling too combative, because even if you hate draft, that might turn into negative points for you.
Well, we wouldn't want that, would we?
Anyways, the core mechanic of this game is super simple and really easy to understand, but because of the random variation of the tiles on the board, it plays totally different every game. In my good amount of plays on Board Game Arena, there hasn't been one specific strategy that wins every time, because there's a ton of variance involved, which means that the replayability is great. This is one of those games that's thinky, but it's really quick, so even if you lose, you feel like you just want to set it right back up right away. Now, that might be a little bit more tedious with the physical copy, but on Board Game Arena, it is a snap. I like this game because I just think it's really fun. I feel like it's kind of hard to find a fast-paced two-player game that doesn't feel like you're just slugging it out. And because this game has these elements like the god powers and the pirogue tokens, it adds just enough chaos to make it feel like the third player is actually the game. Sobek is definitely one of those games that I could see moving up on my list in the future. So I'm probably gonna have to pick up a physical copy of this one really soon to see how it goes. Anyways, I've really been having a blast with this one. It reminds me of some simpler gateway games like Marrakesh or Azul, so if you like those games, you should definitely check this one out. So for my number 40 game of all time, if you're looking for a puzzly two-player game that's quick and simple enough to want to play round after round after round, then might I suggest Sobek 2 Players. Alright, number 39 on my list is also one of the most colorful. It's Red Rising from Stonemaier Games. Red Rising is a game for 1 to 6 players that really has a very simple hand management mechanic at its core. In Red Rising, all you really have to do is pick up a card from one of the 4 locations on the board and exchange it for one of the cards in your hand. Now the card in your hand can't go on the same location that you drew from, but when you put it down on the top of that stack, you'll be able to take the special action in that location. And that's pretty much it. There's a few other small details and actions that you'll get when you first play it, but really you're just trying to collect the best possible hand to have the most points at the end of the game. Now what makes this game great is the variation on each of the cards. There are a ton of cards in this game, and they're all based off of characters from the Red Rising series for which this game is themed. Most of these cards are multi-use, so they'll have abilities that will score you points at the end of the game, but they'll also have abilities that'll trigger when you play it. So there's a really interesting tension between whether you should keep a card or get rid of it to try to get a better card. I really like this game because it's really easy to teach right off the bat. The art and production are fantastic, and because of the extensive roster of characters, I think the replayability for me has been really great. I've enjoyed introducing this to all kinds of different people, and the feedback that I've gotten is that it's a game that really feels like you're playing a board game, but it's a little less involved than some of the heavier strategy games you might get to the table. I think I'd describe this game as surprisingly light, and for game nights that include people of all different levels of gaming experience, this one will work for everyone. The one thing I will say about this game is there is a lot of reading involved. If that's not your cup of tea, then maybe Sobek 2 players might be better for you. But if you like the Red Rising series that it's based on, then you probably don't mind a little bit of reading.
He's got a point though, Sarge.
Now, for those of you that know about Fantasy Realms, yes, this is basically the same game, and to be fair, the bells and whistles aren't always necessary, but I think Stonemaier has done a great job with the production, and even with the few extra mechanics involved, it still feels really simple and streamlined. Anyways, if you really want to know more about this game, you can check out the video that I did for it up here. So anyways, if you're looking for a game for your next game night that looks like you're really getting into a heavy board game, but actually feels quite light, and is really easy on the eyes, then might I suggest Red Rising. The next one on my list, number 38, is Concept from Repost Production. Concept for me is Old Faithful. It's a game that I don't play as often as I used to, but every time I do, it always comes through. I always explain Concept as charades with icons. That's basically what it is. You've got a board with a bunch of icons on it, and the person who's giving the clue will be placing these different cubes around the board to try to get the rest of the players to guess what they're talking about. Sometimes the words and the clues can be pretty easy, but there are some tough ones in the deck, and then there are also some easy clues that we've really made hard for ourselves. I swear, sometimes in these games you are so blind to the answer that's right in front of your face. It makes for some really hilarious rounds though, and I always love a party game that brings out that laughter. At a certain point as well, we felt like we had progressed past the need for the clue cards, and we started just doing rounds where the hidden clue was just a random article from Wikipedia. I'll definitely say that was expert mode, but it was really fun, and it's cool to think that you could really use this game system for anything. This is a game that I think would work for pretty much any occasion, and Liz and I have definitely given this game as a wedding gift to many different people. I mean, it's a great metaphor for the communication necessary in a marriage.
Marriage. Marriage is what brings us together today.
So if we're coming to your wedding this year, pretend like you didn't hear anything. So if you're looking for a really fun party game that can play with a bunch of players and is somewhere in between charades and Pictionary and Fishbowl with a lot of laughs in between, then might I suggest Concept. The next one up, number 37 on my list, is Modern Art, a Reiner Knizia classic auction game that's been rethemed a bunch of times. Now, I'm usually not a fan of pure auction games, but this one is my favorite by far, because it includes almost every auction mechanic that you can even imagine. You've got your standard auction where everybody is bidding over each other constantly. You have a single auction where everybody has to go in order and name their price.
$1 it is.
And you've got hidden auctions where everybody picks a secret amount and then reveals it at the same time.
You ready?
I'm ready.
1, 2, 3.
I I think that's all of them. There might be one or two more, but you get the idea. It's Auction City. I recently played this again at my birthday game jam, and I just had a blast. We played it with the maximum number of players, and the chaos of all the bidding and your hidden money stash, plus a little bit of auctioneer role-playing, really jumped this one up the list for me. I had a blast, but I will say I think your feelings on this game will be mostly determined by the people that you play it with. If you have a bunch of min-maxers in your group that are always just trying to figure out what the perfect price is, I could see this getting into either analysis paralysis mode or Excel spreadsheet mode, and neither of those are really fun. But if you play it with a bunch of people that really just want to have fun, want to push their luck with a bunch of their cash, and all the time enjoy the amazing art pieces that are in the game, then you've got a perfect group for this one. Anyways, out of all of Reiner Knizia's auction games, this one is my favorite. And even though I really do like the mechanics, I think the theme sends it over the edge for me. I love the idea of being some sort of fancy art dealer, throwing around thousands of dollars of cash like it was nothing. And so when I play this game, I can be that. And I'll tell you, that's really fun. So anyways, if you want to be a fancy art dealer for the day, and you want to wheel and deal to try to get the most cash and the best paintings by the end of the game, then might I suggest modern art. Alright, next on my list, number 36, is a game called Wordsy from Formal Ferret Games. Now here's the thing. I love word games. I love doing crosswords, I love playing Scrabble and Boggle growing up.
Nerd alert!
And I think it's really a pity that there aren't that many word games out there, especially with how many board games are getting made these days. But I will say Wordsy is one of my favorites, and it's not just because I came in first at the Northwest Regional Qualifier of the 2022 National Wordsy Tournament. Humble brag. Anyways, maybe that has something to do with it, but really I like Wordsy because I think it is a very streamlined word game that's harder than it looks at first. In the game, there's going to be 4 columns of 2 letters each, and these letters are all going to be consonants. There's no vowels needed. Now each of those columns are valued 5, 4, 3, and 2 points each, which means there are some letters that are more important than others to include in your final word. Now when the round starts, all you have to do is make a word that includes some of the letters that are in the tableau. Obviously, the higher value letters are more important for you to have in your word from a scoring perspective, but you can really crank up your point total if you can use all of them. Now you might be thinking, there's no vowels, how can I make any words? Well, here's the cool part. You can use any number of letters in your word, even ones that are not included in the tableau at all. Now you don't have all day to make these words. Whoever writes down their word first gets the chance to flip over a 30-second timer. At that point, the clock is ticking, and if you don't finish your word by the end of the sand timer, then you don't score anything for that round. Now there are a few bonuses involved based on how quickly you come up with a word and how good your word is. But at the end of the game, you'll drop your 2 lowest scores, and whoever has the most points wins. Wordsy is a really simple concept, but there are very few word games where you can use anti-disestablishmentarianism as a valid word. But honestly, in this game, the longer the word, the more likely you are to include more consonants, so the more likely you are to score points. So get out those dictionaries, because you're going to need all the prefixes and suffixes that you can think of. I feel like this game always presents a challenge to me. Some days I'm really good, and some days I'm terrible. But it's always a really great mental challenge for me, and that's why it's at number 36 on my list. So if Wordle just isn't enough for you anymore, and you're looking for a really cool word game that can really reward your extensive vocabulary, then might I suggest Wordsy. Alright, now we're getting into it. Number 35 on my list is Spirit Island from Greater Than Games. Spirit Island is widely considered as one of the greatest cooperative games of all time. And I have to say, I kind of agree with them. Spirit Island also occupies this interesting space of being a heavier weight cooperative game. There's a lot of co-op games in the vein of Pandemic or Forbidden Islands that are light and easy, but this one really feels like there's a lot of strategy involved, which is one of the reasons why I like it. And that's not even to mention the theme. Board games in the past have kind of had a penchant for glorifying this idea of colonization. I mean, think of the most popular board game of all time. It's Settlers of Catan, where you're colonizing and developing a strange island. There's often very little thought that goes into the indigenous experience, but Spirit Island takes that and flips it on its head. In Spirit Island, you're one of the many spirits that protects this beautiful island, and at the beginning of the game, you've noticed that there are a few colonizers that are exploring your island and making their way inland. Your job as a spirit is to get rid of those colonists, whether it's through destroying their buildings, or scaring their explorers, or creating natural disasters that can do both. Each spirit is deeply asymmetrical asymmetrical, which is another reason why I think this game is really cool. Some spirits are really good at scaring the settlers, some spirits are really good at driving them out of certain spaces, some spirits are really good at picking off colonizers one by one. Each spirit around the table has a very important strength, and the way you utilize those strengths will ultimately determine whether or not you can drive the colonizers out. I've played this game a number of times, but I haven't quite pulled the trigger on owning it yet. I've really enjoyed my plays of this one. It's definitely a cooperative game that allows you to work together, but still has enough individual autonomy to make it feel like you can play your own game without getting quarterbacked by someone else. I think that's really hard to find in cooperative games these days, so kudos to Spirit Island for that one. They've come out with a few expansions on this one to add extra content, but even the base game I feel like has a ton of replayability because each of the spirits plays totally different. So if you're looking for a really meaty cooperative game that allows everybody to highlight each other's strengths and allows you to kick some colonizer butt while you're at it,
Let's kick some butt.
then might I suggest Spirit Island. The next one on my list is kind of an interesting one. It's a Korean card game called Hwatu that I've recently started playing again on Board Game Arena. It's a really simple game that's played with a basic Hanafuda deck that has equal parts strategy and luck to keep it fresh over hundreds of plays. On your turn, all you'll do is play a card from your hand and then flip a card from the middle.
Could it really be that simple?
Your goal with those two actions is to try to make as many matching sets as possible. There are 12 different suits of 4 cards each, and so when you match 2 cards of the same suit, you'll be able to take them out of the middle and place them in your supply. Now there are some cards that are worth more than others, and some specific sets that will give you points that are called yaku. The game will go on until the entire deck is gone, and then you'll score points, reshuffle, and play another round based on how many players there are. Honestly, Hwatu is a game that isn't really well known here in the States, but it plays a cool part of Korean culture, and as a Korean American, it was really cool to start exploring the history and the culture surrounding the game. I always love getting back in touch with my roots, and I won't lie, when I teach people this game, it makes me very proud to be Korean. Anyways, I managed to get a small Hwatu/Hanafuda deck from a really cool studio in town, and it's very much pocket sized, so it's definitely a game that I like to bring with me wherever I go. Plus, there's a bunch of different games that use the Hanafuda deck, so if you get one of those, it's just like getting a regular deck of cards. The sky's the limit. So anyways, if you're looking for your next super fun and very simple set collection game, and you want to check out a great implementation on Board Game Arena, then might I suggest Hwatu. Alright, number 33 on this list kind of speaks for itself. It's Ticket to Ride Europe from Days of Wonder. Now, I specifically included the Europe one in here because I personally enjoy it better than the original. The map is a little bit tighter, but it adds in the little station mechanic that gives a little bit more flexibility to everyone.
Well, that's good news.
If you've been living under a rock for the last 10 years and you haven't heard of Ticket to Ride, it's a really simple route building and set collection game where you're placing trains along different routes on a map and trying to complete different sets of destinations to earn as many points as you can. Ticket to Ride is a modern classic, and it's a great gateway game to introduce people to a bunch of different mechanics. I mean, it's got set collection, it's got route building, it's got contract fulfillment, and if you understand those mechanics, that'll open up a whole new world of different board games for you. I love what Ticket to Ride as a whole has contributed to the hobby, and so I really wanted to include this one somewhere on my list. Now, I will add in the caveat that as much as I enjoy Ticket to Ride Europe, I haven't played a ton of the alternate maps, and I definitely wouldn't consider myself a Ticket to Ride connoisseur. So if you don't agree with me that this is the best version of Ticket to Ride, then feel free to sound off in the comments. I'd love to get more suggestions on which Ticket to Ride you think is the best. But anyways, Ticket to Ride really speaks for itself at this point, but if you're looking for a slight upgrade on the original formula that streamlines it, improves it, and still brings that classic train game experience that Ticket to Ride is known for, then might I suggest Ticket to Ride Europe. Alright, we're getting there. Number 32 on my list is Barren Park, designed by the amazing Phil Walker Harding. Phil Walker Harding is known for his light to medium weight games, and a lot of them include the spatial puzzles that make Barren Park so great. In Barren Park, everybody is building their very own bear-themed zoo. Sounds like a really common premise, right?
Go Bears.
Anyways, to do that, you'll be placing tiles on this expanding board to cover up different icons. These icons will then allow you to take different actions to help build out your park. I've definitely mentioned this before, but I am a huge fan of these Tetris-y puzzles. I feel like my brain is really working overtime to make sure that every little piece goes into the perfect spot. And I will say it is very satisfying when it happens. I'm always trying to plan ahead to see what types of tiles will fit where, and if your brain works at all like that, then this game is definitely a game for you. The rule set of this game is very simple, and it makes it really easy to teach, and also just easy to get to the table at any given point. It's great for veterans and beginners alike, and even if you have a mix of the two, everybody still has a pretty good chance of winning. All the games that I've played, regardless of whether there were newbies or vets involved, have all been really close, which to me is always really fun. I feel like there are a lot of games that have come out lately that have started using this polyomino spatial puzzle, but this one is one of the OGs, and you gotta respect it for that. So anyways, if you're looking for a cute game where you can build a zoo, get some cute bears, and play a little bit of Tetris, all without having to think too hard, then might I suggest Baron Park. And last but not least for today, number 31 on my list is a game called Half-Truth. Half-Truth is a game that was designed by Ken Jennings of Jeopardy fame and Richard Garfield of Magic the Gathering fame. Now, I've talked about this game a number of different times on my channel, but for those who haven't seen those videos, this game is a trivia game that is better than Trivial Pursuit. Full stop.
That's a bold statement.
Let me break it down for you. On the trivia card that you'll flip over each round, you'll get a category and 6 different answers that might fit that category. Now the trick is, there are 3 correct answers and 3 incorrect answers, hence the name. Now the interesting part is you're going to be bidding on which ones you think are correct. That means if you just want to get points, you can just bid on one of the answers to be correct and have a 50-50 chance. But if you think you know a little bit more than everybody else, you could choose to bid on 2 or even 3 different answers to try to get a leg up on the competition. You'll get bonus points if you get all 3 answers correct, but if even one of them is wrong, you'll lose all points for that round. The concept of Half-Truth is great because one of my biggest gripes about Trivial Pursuit is that not everybody gets to answer every question. But in Half-Truth, everybody is involved the whole time, and you really get to know what people are good at and maybe not so good at. Plus, there's a ton of different category cards that are included in the game, so there's bound to be some sort of niche that you know that nobody else knows. I think this is a criminally underrated game, and anytime someone tells me they're interested in trivia, I always show them this one. Personally, I'm a huge fan of trivia. I love my pub trivia. I took the test for Teen Jeopardy every year that I was eligible. I never made it. But the closest thing that I have to that now is Half-Truth. The trivia thing I think also runs in my family, so this one is a Hart family get-together classic, and I have a lot of fond memories from those times. So if you're a trivia buff, you like pushing your luck, or you just want to learn some really interesting fun facts, then might I suggest Half-Truth. Alright folks, that's it for today's episode. Thanks for sticking around for numbers 40 through 31 of my top 50 games of all time list. Oh, and now, before I forget, it's time for a second giveaway announcement. So, the game that I'll be giving away for this set of games is, drumroll please, Concept. Like I said, this is a party game for everyone. They also have different versions of the game, some that are a little bit more kids focused. So if you win this one, you'll get to pick which one you want. Anyways, the rules are pretty much the same as the Phantom Ink giveaway. Step 1, you gotta be a subscriber, and step 2, you just gotta drop a wine glass emoji down below in the comments. And don't forget, you'll get a bonus entry if you give me a suggestion of your own based on some of the games that I already like. And again, this giveaway will last until I post my next video, which isn't very long, so make sure you get on it. Anyways, make sure you keep it tuned to this channel for the next installment of my top 50 games and the announcement of the winners of these giveaways. Anyways, thanks so much for everyone who supported me so far. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so I can keep growing this channel and keep helping you find your perfect board game. Once again, this has been a Might I Suggest a Game production, and I'm Alex, your board game sommelier, signing off.